Tecmo Bowl, as its name suggests, is an American football game developed and released by Tecmo. Originally released as an arcade game in 1987, the game featured a dual-screen cabinet and allowed up to 4 players to compete in a match between 2 fictitious teams. A port was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1989, and was the first console game to include real NFL players via a license from the NFLPA. And yes, the version for the NES was extremely popular, spawning various sequels starting with Tecmo's Super Bowl in 1991. The game has also been cited by various media outlets as one of the best sports video games ever made. In terms of gameplay, the NES version allows 2 players to play rather than the arcade's original 4 players. The player can choose between 3 different modes: 1 player, 2 player, and coach. In 1 player mode, the player picks a football team and plays against the computer. After every game that the player wins, the computer picks another team to play as, and the player stays with their original choice. In 2 player and coach modes, the player and another human will play 1 game, but the players will only choose the plays in coach mode. In both the arcade and the NES version, the playbook only consists of 4 offensive plays. When on defense, a player selects a play based on anticipation of the offense's choice. If chosen correctly, it returns in a collapse of the offensive line and well-covered receivers. And sometimes it sets up a potential sack or interception. Although featuring the names, rosters, and statistics of real NFL players from a mix of the 1987 and 1988 seasons, the gameplay limits how closely the video game players mimic real-life players. Unlike in the NFL, the NES version only shows 9 players for each team, as opposed to the standard 11 players. But as in traditional football, the offensive player with the ball tries to avoid the defenders, and the defenders try either to avoid blockers, tackle the player with the ball, or intercept it. Tecmo Bowl consists of 12 teams, each equipped with 4 plays. Most teams have 2 running plays and 2 passing plays, with the exceptions being San Francisco and Miami, who have 3 passing plays and 1 running play. As Tecmo was not able to get the NFL's consent to use real team names, the teams are only solely identified by their home city or state. Each team has a different level of effectiveness based on its personnel and play selection. Over the more recent years, Tecmo Bowl has received several re-releases, with the latest being in 2018 on the Nintendo Switch. Even upon this game's release to more modern day, this game has been met with critical acclaim, and is very fondly remembered by those who grew up with it. While the graphics and teams may look primitive by today's standards, especially when we have more realistic alternatives, one thing to keep in mind is that at the time of this game's release, it was the most realistic football game that you could play on either computer or console. This is also one of the few sports games that has been met with universal appeal. You don't have to be a fan of American football to enjoy the playability of this game. So what are my thoughts on Tecmo Bowl? Well, I think this game is, again, personally nostalgic to me because of how many times that I've played it as a kid. This was a game I didn't own. In fact, I had to go over to my grandma's to play it because they had it and we didn't. I'm starting to recognize a pattern with that, where a lot of games that we didn't own might have been because it was at my grandma's and we just played over there. That way we could expand the game library, because we only owned about 6 or 7 games for the Nintendo by the time the Nintendo was done. But one thing I think is universally appealing about this game is the gameplay. It's not really necessarily a football game, but it is a video game with a very addictive style of gameplay that I think anyone could just pick up and play. Yes, the graphics are a bit primitive by today's standards, but I think that gameplay is what's going to be the most important to people who come back and play this game. Plus, if you're a fan of football or the NFL, I think you're really going to enjoy this game. Now, perhaps the game I'd recommend over this one would be Tecmo's Super Bowl. I've already done a video on that, so if you'd like to see that, I'll leave a link in the description below. That said, that's actually going to wrap it up for this video. Remember, if you like what you see, please hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment below, let me know what you liked about today's video, let me know what you'd like to see in the future. As always, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and stay tuned because I have more content coming. I'll see you in the next one. If you like this video and you'd like to help out with future projects on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. Also, if you enjoy the content of this channel, please remember to click on this subscribe button. Again, I want to thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.